They tell you anger is dangerous because it's loud. But what if the most dangerous emotion is the one that never raises its voice? Anger explodes in a moment. Hatred survives for years. Which one do you think destroys more lives in silence? Some people don't want to hurt you once. They want to erase you slowly, and that is where hatred begins. They say anger is loud. It shouts, it slams doors. It makes itself obvious. But hatred is silent. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. It waits. Hatred doesn't want to punish you once and walk away. It wants to stay. It wants to linger. It wants to seep into time and slowly rewrite the way you are seen, remembered, and judged. The Stoics understood this deeply. Anger is a fire. It flares up, burns hot, and eventually dies out. But hatred is poison, and poison doesn't rush. It works patiently, quietly, and relentlessly. Fire destroys quickly, then fades. Poison stays in the system. That's why today, we're not talking about anger. We're talking about something far more dangerous. We're talking about the real signs of hatred, and why it's more destructive than anger could ever be. And before we go deeper, let me say this. If you've ever felt surrounded by negativity, by people who secretly resent your growth, question your peace, or drain your energy without saying a word, you're not imagining it, and you don't have to walk that path alone. I've created a Patreon community for those who want to grow stronger mentally and spiritually through Stoic philosophy. Inside, I don't just share ideas. I offer one-on-one text guidance, deep reflections, and personal advice to help you actually live these principles, not just listen to them. If you're looking for a space where wisdom replaces chaos, where strength is built through stillness, and where growth doesn't have to be lonely, the link is in the description. You don't have to face hatred, betrayal, or confusion by yourself. Let's grow in peace. Together now. Let's begin. 1. They never forget your mistakes. This is one of the clearest signs of real hatred. A hateful person never forgets what you did wrong, no matter how much time has passed, no matter how much you've changed, no matter how much good you've done since. They keep a detailed mental archive of every flaw, every misstep, every wrong word you've ever spoken. Not because it helps them grow, but because hatred needs memory to survive. They won't remember the moments you helped them. They won't remember when you stood by them, supported them, or showed up when it mattered. They remember only what feeds the story they need. Because when life no longer gives hatred a reason, it creates one. A hateful person doesn't seek closure. They seek fuel. They replay old conflicts in their mind like a movie on repeat. But each time, they rewrite the script. They add intention where there was misunderstanding. They add malice where there was confusion. They exaggerate pain to justify resentment. Healing would end the story. And they don't want the story to end. They keep the wound open because the pain gives their hatred purpose. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When someone refuses to forget your mistakes, it's rarely about justice. It's about superiority. By keeping you forever wrong, they get to feel forever right. By clinging to your imperfections, they avoid facing their own. Seneca once said, "No man confers a benefit on another while he is thinking of repayment." In the same way, no one truly forgives while they are keeping score. Hatred is simply the scoreboard of the ego. Every wrong, every flaw, every imperfection carefully tallied, not to understand, but to dominate. Think about it. You've probably met people like this. people who bring up things you did years ago, at the exact moment you've grown beyond them. You've changed. You've matured. You've learned, but to them, you never will. Because their hatred isn't aimed at who you are today. It's chained to the version of you that hurt them, disappointed them, or threatened their pride. And that's the quiet danger of hatred. It doesn't live in the present. It feeds on time. It feeds on time. And slowly, without you even noticing, it turns days into decades. With every year that passes, the memory becomes less about what actually happened and more about how it felt. The facts fade. The emotion remains. They're no longer remembering reality. They're remembering the pain, the humiliation, the story their mind chose to preserve. And so the loop continues. The same moment, replayed again and again. Not to understand, not to heal, but to justify what they already feel. This is where Stoicism offers its antidote. A Stoic does not seek revenge through memory. They seek freedom through forgetting, because the moment you can recall a past mistake, your own or someone else's, without bitterness, without resentment, you've already won. The memory no longer controls you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this every morning. Let it go. The wrong done to you is gone. If you allow it to be gone, and that is exactly what a hateful person cannot do. They live in yesterday. They feed on the past. They believe that remembering your sins somehow protects them from facing their own. That by keeping your mistakes alive, they can avoid looking inward. If you want to understand the depth of someone's character, don't listen to what they say. Watch what they choose to remember. The wise remember lessons. The hateful remember injuries. The wise recall what helped them grow. The hateful recall what they can later use against you. And here's the irony. This obsession with your past doesn't trap you. It traps them, because a mind that constantly relives yesterday can never fully live in today. They become prisoners of memory, pacing the same mental cell, replaying the same scenes, and hatred becomes their jailer. So when you meet someone who never forgets your mistakes, understand this clearly. They are not seeking truth. They are seeking control. They are trying to define you by your worst moment, so they never have to confront the fact that you've evolved beyond it. That's what makes hatred far more dangerous than anger. Anger wants to argue. Hatred wants to freeze time. Anger reacts to who you are. Hatred fights who you're becoming. But a Stoic mind understands something fundamental. You are not your past. You are your response to it. And that is the one thing a hateful person can never take from you. Your ability to grow while they remain stuck. So let them keep their list. Let them count your flaws. While they're busy collecting evidence of who you were, you'll be busy becoming someone they'll never be. 3.2. They dismiss your success. One of the most revealing signs of real hatred is subtle, almost quiet. They dismiss your success. When you achieve something meaningful, something that required time, sacrifice, and patience, they don't celebrate it. They shrink it. They minimize it. They make it sound ordinary, easy, or undeserved. You'll hear phrases like, "Oh, anyone could have done that. You just got lucky." It's not really that impressive. Notice what's missing. They never acknowledged the effort. They explain your success away because it isn't just a reminder of what you achieved. It's a mirror reflecting what they haven't done. And hatred cannot stand progress, especially when that progress belongs to someone it resents. Every step forward you take, every improvement, every quiet victory exposes their stagnation. And that is something a hateful person finds unbearable. A truly hateful person would rather live in denial than admit you've grown. They'd rather believe the world is unfair than accept that you worked harder, stayed disciplined longer, or endured what they avoided. Their ego cannot handle the idea that someone they dislike could also be someone they should respect. Seneca said it plainly, "He who envies others does not obtain peace." That's exactly what happens here. Envy hardens into denial. Denial deepens into hatred. They don't just envy your results. They envy the calm, the confidence, the quiet persistence that built those results. The discipline they lacked. The patience they abandoned. Let me give you a real example. A man named Adrian worked at a company for 5 years. He started as an intern, barely noticed by anyone. But he had something most people didn't. While others stayed stuck in excuses, Adrian chose something different. Quiet discipline. He showed up early, day after day. He learned from failure instead of complaining about it. He didn't talk much. He didn't advertise his effort. He simply worked. No drama, no shortcuts. Just consistency. Over time, that quiet discipline spoke louder than any words ever could. And eventually, it paid off. Adrian earned a promotion. Not because he played politics. Not because he demanded attention, but because his reliability became impossible to ignore. When the news spread, some people congratulated him sincerely. They meant it. But there was one colleague, let's call him Marcus, who reacted differently. Marcus smirked and said, almost casually, "Guess you were just in the right place at the right time." That moment reveals something important. That wasn't humor. That wasn't honesty. That was hatred disguised as casual talk. Marcus couldn't admit Adrian deserved the promotion, because doing so would have forced him to face an uncomfortable truth, his own laziness, his own lack of discipline. So instead of acknowledging effort, he reduced it to luck. And this is how hatred often operates, quietly hidden behind sarcasm. Wrapped in backhanded comments and fake compliments, they won't attack you directly. They attack the validity of what you've achieved. If you start a business, they say, everyone's doing that these days. If you get in shape, they say, you must have good genetics. If you find love, they say, you just got lucky with the timing. Every accomplishment becomes something that simply happened, never something you earned. This is where Stoicism offers clarity. A Stoic does not seek validation from others because he understands a simple truth. Most people don't judge based on facts. They judge through the lens of their own insecurity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth. And the truth is this: hateful people aren't reacting to your success. They're reacting to their own sense of failure. They need to belittle you to feel balanced. Because if they acknowledged your growth, they'd have to confront the parts of themselves that refused to grow. It's not your success that offends them. It's the reflection of who they could have been if they had tried as hard as you did." That's the difference between anger and hatred. Anger flares up when you win. Hatred denies that you've won at all. Hatred rewrites the story to protect the ego. So what should you do when people dismiss your success? You stay quiet. You stay humble. And you keep moving. You don't owe anyone your struggle story. You don't need to explain how hard it was. You don't need to justify what you built to people who wouldn't have believed in you anyway. Stoicism teaches indifference to both praise and criticism. Both exist outside your control. Your success doesn't need their approval to be real. It's real because you lived through the process that created it. So let them downplay it. Let them shrug. Let them pretend it doesn't matter. Because deep down, they know it does. They wouldn't try to dismiss it if it didn't bother them. A hateful person's denial is proof that you've grown beyond their understanding. They can't celebrate your light because it reminds them of their shadows. So when they say, "You just got lucky," smile quietly. Luck might open the door, but only discipline keeps it open. And that is a truth a hateful person will never understand. 3. They gossip behind your back. If anger wants to confront you face to face, hatred prefers to whisper when you're not around. It doesn't strike directly. It stabs your reputation quietly while pretending its hands are clean. When someone truly hates you, they won't always attack you openly. That would require courage, and confrontation demands truth. Instead, they choose the coward's weapon, gossip. Gossip is hatred's favorite disguise. It allows people to hurt you while pretending they're just talking. It poisons how others see you without ever appearing openly malicious. It often starts with a harmless-sounding sentence. "I don't mean to talk badly about them, but..." And what follows is always venom. Hatred doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it whispers. And the Stoics understood this well. They saw gossip as one of the lowest expressions of human weakness. Not because it causes immediate damage, but because of how quietly and patiently it works. Epictetus warned of this when he said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Because the higher you rise above petty people, the more desperately their mouths will try to pull you back down. A hateful person gossips not because they truly know you, but because they want to control how others see you. They cannot destroy your truth, so they distort it. They cannot defeat your presence, so they attempt to dominate your absence. Behind closed doors, they twist your words. They exaggerate your flaws. They fill in the blanks with assumptions and half-stories. Then they feed their version of you to anyone willing to listen. And what makes gossip so dangerous is this. It doesn't sound like hatred. It sounds like concern. "I just think they've changed lately. I heard they're not who they seem. I don't know. Something about them feels off." This is psychological warfare disguised as casual conversation. A slow drip of poison meant to turn admiration into doubt. And the truth is, most hateful people don't actually want you destroyed. They want you misunderstood. Because once people begin to doubt your integrity, your voice loses power. And that's how hatred wins. Not through violence, not through confrontation, but through the slow erosion of reputation. Let me give you an example. A woman named Clara worked quietly. She never bothered anyone. She wasn't loud. She wasn't arrogant. She simply stayed focused. Her calm demeanor and steady work ethic brought her success. And that success quietly attracted envy. Over time, she noticed something change. The tone at work shifted. The smiles became tighter. The conversations grew colder. Later, she learned the reason. Someone had been whispering behind her back, suggesting that Clara had been flirting with the boss to get ahead. It was a lie, but the truth no longer mattered. The damage was already done. The hateful person never confronted her. They didn't have the courage. Instead, they did something far worse. They changed how the world saw her, and in doing so, they tasted the illusion of power they craved. That is what gossip does. It doesn't destroy truth all at once. It corrodes it slowly, like rust on iron. It spreads quietly until the structure weakens from the inside. A Stoic, however, understands something crucial. Reputation, while valuable, is ultimately outside of one's control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it." In other words, people can talk, but it is your reaction that determines whether their words carry weight. The best response to gossip is not confrontation. It is excellence. Continue to do what they said you couldn't. Continue to walk with integrity. Continue to let your actions speak when their words begin to fade. Because gossip only has power when it finds an audience. The higher you rise, the smaller their whispers will sound. The more peace you project, the more visible their bitterness becomes. Understand this clearly. Gossip is never truly about you. It is about them, their insecurities, their failures, their quiet jealousy. Your success threatens their comfort. Your composure exposes their chaos. Your light reveals their shadows, so they gossip because they cannot compete. They gossip because your silence feels like superiority. They gossip because it's the only way they can feel taller without ever having to grow. But here's the irony, their whispers never truly fade. And here's the irony that most people miss. Every time they talk about you, they give you power. They spread your name. They confirm your presence. They keep your story alive. Without realizing it, you've already become the main character in a story they secretly wish they were part of. That's why defending yourself to people who believe gossip is a waste of energy. Let their ears reflect their own shallowness. As Epictetus taught, when someone is properly grounded in life, they no longer need to look outside themselves for approval. So let them talk, because while they move in circles, whispering the same stories, you move in silence, building what they can only discuss, and that is what truly weakens hatred. When your peace grows louder than their poison, something becomes clear. Gossip always reveals more about the speaker than the subject. Hatred may whisper behind your back, but truth walks beside you, calm, and unshaken, for they secretly celebrate your failures. This is one of the darkest and most revealing signs of real hatred. They don't throw a party, they don't clap, but you can feel it. That faint smirk, that delayed response. Oh, that's unfortunate. That suspicious calmness when something goes wrong in your life. Hatred doesn't always roar. Sometimes it watches in silence and enjoys the show. Anger lashes out. It's loud, impulsive, and often gone by tomorrow. But hatred waits. It lingers in the background, feeding on envy and resentment until it finds pleasure in your pain. It doesn't want to destroy you quickly. It wants to see you stumble slowly, just enough for them to feel superior again. That's what makes hatred far more dangerous than anger. It's disguised. It wears the mask of politeness while quietly wishing for your downfall. Imagine this. You've been building a business, or maybe you've been improving yourself. You've been consistent, disciplined, quietly rising. Attention starts to come. Compliments, small wins, progress, and suddenly, one of your friends grows distant. The one who used to text you daily now takes hours to reply. The one who once cheered you on now watches silently from the sidelines. Then one day, something goes wrong. A deal falls apart. A client leaves. Life throws you a setback, and that same person reappears, almost casually, and says, "Yeah, I had a feeling that would happen." That phrase sounds harmless, but it's venom wrapped in subtlety. It's not concern, its satisfaction, they aren't warning you. They're celebrating the accuracy of a private wish they never admitted out loud. They didn't want to see you succeed because your success exposed their lack of progress. Hatred isn't really about you. It's about them. It's born from comparison, from the uncomfortable feeling that your light makes their darkness more visible. When you win, it feels like a personal insult to their ego. When you fail, they finally feel calm again. That's why they crave your failure. Not because they truly want you to suffer, but because your stumble temporarily silences their own insecurity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And when someone is consumed by hatred, their thoughts rot with resentment. They can't enjoy their own life, so they try to find pleasure in the cracks of yours. That is the tragedy of hatred. It is a poison that burns the vessel. It lives in long before it ever reaches its target. And you'll notice this pattern clearly. They rarely show up to congratulate you when you succeed. But the moment you fall, they suddenly appear. Sometimes they don't need to say much at all. Their reaction says everything. They'll act sympathetic, but their tone will betray them. Their words carry that faint aftertaste of satisfaction, subtle but unmistakable. At times, they'll even spread your failures behind your back, not to help you, but to feel powerful, as if your misstep grants them moral superiority. You'll notice it in their timing too. They are quiet when you rise, but suddenly loud when you fall. They'll say things like, "I was just worried about you. Maybe you were moving too fast." These phrases are not support. They are covert celebration. In Stoicism, hatred is considered one of the lowest forms of weakness. Seneca wrote that anger is temporary madness, but hatred is chronic madness, a sickness of the spirit that slowly erodes empathy. When someone secretly celebrates your failures, they reveal something important about themselves, a kind of spiritual decay. They've lost the ability to appreciate truth, growth, and beauty, because all of those things remind them of what they lack. So what is the Stoic response? Do not hate them back. Do not try to prove them wrong. Do not rub your success in their face. That only feeds the sickness. Instead, remain calm. Let your resilience speak for you. Let your peace quietly humiliate their bitterness. Because nothing destroys a hateful person faster than watching you rise again, without rage, without revenge, and without needing their approval. Remember this: when someone rejoices in your pain, they've already lost something. You haven't. You still have your inner peace. While their hatred consumes them quietly from the inside, your strength multiplies. So if you ever notice someone smiling when you suffer, or falling silent when you succeed, take note. They are showing you exactly what their heart holds. And in that moment, be grateful, because their reaction is your revelation. Real hatred doesn't just expose your enemies. It reveals your growth, your progress, and your ability to stay calm in a world that secretly wants to see you fall. 5. They pretend you don't exist. This is one of the coldest, most painful signs of real hatred. Silence, no confrontation, no argument, no closure, just erasure. This isn't the silence of peace. It's the silence of punishment. It's their way of saying, "You're not even worth my attention." And that's what makes it so cruel. Human beings are wired to crave acknowledgement. Even anger feels more human than indifference. But hatred goes deeper than anger. It doesn't want to fight you. It wants to erase you. People who hate you in this way use invisibility as a weapon. They walk past you without a glance. They act as if your achievements never happened. They conveniently forget your name when credit is given. They pretend your presence doesn't shift the energy in the room, even though you both know it does. This behavior is psychological warfare disguised as maturity. The Stoics understood this dynamic well. Epictetus taught that you cannot control what others say or do, only how you respond. And when someone chooses to pretend you don't exist, the Stoic answer is not to beg for attention or chase validation. It is to become even more self-sufficient, to master the art of being content with your own existence, because nothing disarms hatred more effectively than quiet self-respect. Now, let's make this real. Imagine you once had a close friend, someone who knew your struggles, your dreams, your weaknesses, and your hopes. Over time, you began to grow. You changed. You rose above patterns they couldn't escape. And instead of growing with you, they grew bitter. Slowly, something shifted. They stopped responding to your messages. They ignored your achievements. And when you walked into a room, they looked straight through you, as if you were no goodbye, no explanation, just disappearance. That is what hatred looks like when it becomes too proud to speak. It doesn't attack. It deletes. It feels like being ghosted, not out of indifference, but out of disdain. The silent treatment becomes their chosen weapon. In their mind, ignoring you gives them control. They believe erasing you restores their sense of dominance. But here is the irony. By investing energy into pretending you don't exist, they prove that you still do, powerfully, uncomfortably, deeply. When someone truly hates you, they often cannot tolerate the fact that you still have peace without their acknowledgement. Your continued existence irritates their sense of importance. They want you to crave their attention, to break, to chase, to prove yourself. That is how they feed their ego. And when you don't, when you remain calm, detached, and focused, something happens. They begin to lose power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When someone tries to erase you, don't return the gesture with bitterness. Don't waste your time proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Just keep walking your path with quiet dignity. That is the Stoic way. Not to retaliate, but to transcend. The truth is, pretending someone doesn't exist is not strength. It is weakness hiding behind arrogance. It is the behavior of someone too emotionally fragile to handle your presence. People who are truly at peace don't need to erase anyone. They can coexist without conflict. Only those who feel secretly threatened need to make others invisible. The danger of this kind of hatred is how subtle it is. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It seeps into interactions through avoidance, cold politeness, and selective silence. But make no mistake, it is still hatred, just wearing the mask of emotional control. The Stoic lesson here is simple. When people pretend you don't exist, don't internalize it. Their silence does not define your worth. It reveals their emptiness. There are 8 billion people in the world. One person's refusal to acknowledge you does not erase your existence. Their ignorance doesn't make you invisible. It only exposes their blindness. So hold your composure. Continue your path. Let your presence be your statement, because the most powerful response to being erased is to live in such a way that your existence speaks, louder than their silence ever could. And remember this. Real hatred doesn't always shout. Sometimes it looks away, hoping you'll disappear. But if you stay calm, if you stay grounded, If you stay present, they'll eventually realize the truth. You were never the one who disappeared. They did. 6. They imitate you out of spite. This one surprises many people. But one of the most twisted signs of real hatred is not rejection and not mockery. It is imitation. Yes, when someone begins to copy you, not out of admiration, but because they cannot stand the fact that you were the one who did it first. At first glance, imitation is often seen as a compliment. We've all heard the familiar saying, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But that only holds true when imitation comes from genuine respect. When it comes from hatred, imitation turns into a silent form of warfare. It is no longer about appreciating your essence, but about trying to take it. As if they are quietly saying, if I become you, maybe I can destroy what makes you special. Hatred often hides behind envy. And envy doesn't merely want what you have. It wants to be you without enduring your effort, your pain, your discipline, or the depth of your soul. That is what makes it dark. So when someone imitates you out of spite, they are not trying to learn. They are trying to compete. They begin dressing like you, speaking like you, posting like you, even adopting your beliefs or ideas. But there is always one crucial difference. They never give you credit. In fact, they often act as if they invented it themselves. They want your light without acknowledging its source. Imagine a very real situation. You decide to start a YouTube channel about Stoicism. You pour your heart and energy into it. You research, you write, you grow. Then suddenly, someone you know, maybe even a former friend, launches a channel that looks eerily similar. The tone, the titles, even the thumbnail style feel almost identical. Yet they never mention you. Worse, they begin acting as if you were the one copying them. That is not coincidence. That is hostility disguised as inspiration. They are not trying to honor your influence. They are trying to erase it. Stoic philosophy helps us understand this behavior deeply. Epictetus once said, when you see someone succeed by cheating or pretending, remember that they have chosen a different path than yours. The hateful imitator chooses the path of illusion. They want to appear strong, wise, or original like you, without walking through the struggles that shaped you. They don't want your journey. They only want your result. And this is where it grows even darker. Often, they imitate you simply to outdo you. If you speak calmly, they will try to sound even calmer, not because it is natural to them, but because it gives them the feeling of having beaten you at your own game. If you embrace simplicity, they suddenly become minimalist as well. Not because they understand the philosophy, but because they want to strip away what makes you distinct. Hatred is competitive by nature. It doesn't want to grow. It wants to dominate. An imitation becomes a psychological attack, a way to blur your identity and make your uniqueness feel replaceable. But here is the Stoic truth. No one can truly imitate essence. They can copy your style, your actions, your appearance, but never your soul. The way you think, the way you feel, the authenticity behind what you create. These things cannot be replicated. Imitation can mimic form, but it can never reach depth. Seneca once wrote, "No man becomes great by imitation." The hateful imitator proves this perfectly. The more they copy you, the smaller they become. Because every act of imitation silently confirms what they already know. You are the original. Still, it hurts. It hurts to see your ideas, your essence, your style taken by someone who secretly despises you. It feels like theft. And in many ways, it is. But the Stoic response is not to expose them or retaliate. It is to detach, because imitation driven by spite is, in truth, a disguised compliment. It means your presence is powerful enough to provoke replication. You have become a mirror reflecting their insecurity. People who hate you yet still imitate you are torn between two conflicting emotions, envy and denial. They crave what you have, yet they refuse to acknowledge that feeling within themselves. So instead, they choose to take quietly. They copy, imitate, and borrow pieces of you, hoping that by becoming more like you, they can finally silence the uncomfortable voice inside them, the voice that constantly reminds them of their own lack. But they never succeed, because imitation born from hatred never brings peace. It only creates obsession. So if one day you notice someone copying your voice, your habits, your way of thinking, or the way you carry yourself, while deliberately avoiding the truth and avoiding your eyes, understand what is really happening. They are not becoming you. They are trying to consume the part of you that unsettles them, the part that makes them feel small. Don't let it disturb your calm. Let them imitate. Let them perform. Because while they are busy pretending to be you, you are quietly evolving into someone even greater. The Stoic answer is simple. Never compete with the counterfeit. Remain authentic, grounded, and always growing. The more they imitate you out of spite, the more they remind the world and themselves who the original truly is. 7. They talk to everyone except you. One of the most subtle yet powerful signs of real hatred is when someone deliberately speaks to everyone but you. They greet the entire room. They laugh with your friends. They make eye contact with everyone else. But when it comes to you, there is silence. Not accidental silence, but calculated silence. This is the language of exclusion, a psychological weapon used by those who lack the courage for direct confrontation. They don't want to argue. They don't want to discuss. They simply want you to feel invisible. It's their way of saying, you don't belong here. At first, it may seem harmless. You might tell yourself they're just in a mood, or maybe distracted. But over time, it becomes clear that their avoidance is not random. It's intentional. They want you to notice the silence. They want you to feel the sting of being ignored while they pour their energy into everyone else around you. And here is the deeper truth. This behavior is not about communication. It's about control. When someone hates you deeply but doesn't want to expose that hatred, they use social isolation as a tool. By excluding you from conversations, they attempt to shrink your presence, to make you doubt your worth, your voice, your place. In Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius would call this the vanity of others, because only an insecure mind believes that ignoring someone gives them power. A wise person knows that silence loses its strength the moment you stop craving attention. Imagine a familiar situation. You're at work. During a team discussion, everyone is talking, sharing ideas, exchanging jokes. The person sitting next to you, someone who clearly has an issue with you, speaks to everyone but skips over you completely. You ask a question, and they pretend not to hear. You offer an idea, and they act as if nothing was said. Minutes later, someone else repeats your exact thought, and suddenly they nod in agreement. That's not coincidence. That's selective exclusion. It's their way of cutting your voice out of the social circle, hoping it will weaken you. But a Stoic doesn't beg to be included. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be loved, love yourself." Meaning, when others withdraw their attention, it should not disturb your peace. Their silence should not echo inside you unless you allow it to. And this is where everything comes together. Because when you truly know your value, you stop chasing acknowledgement from people who are too blinded by resentment to ever give it. The psychology behind this kind of hatred is quietly fascinating. People who hate you, yet avoid speaking to you, are often trapped between two conflicting emotions, jealousy and fear. They envy your confidence, your calm presence, your authenticity. At the same time, they fear that talking to you might expose their own insecurity. Your composure threatens them. Your presence becomes a mirror, reflecting their lack of self-control, their unresolved chaos. And instead of facing that discomfort honestly, they choose distance. They convince themselves that silence makes them superior. But the truth is much simpler and much harsher. Avoidance is not strength, it is escape. You'll notice something else, too. They're not silent with everyone. In fact, when you're around, they may talk louder, laugh harder, smile wider, and connect more enthusiastically with others. It's not natural warmth. It's performance. A quiet form of cruelty meant to make sure you see the exclusion. They want you to feel it. That's the part most people don't realize. Hatred doesn't always attack directly. Sometimes it tries to erase you socially. It doesn't need insults or arguments. It only needs gestures, glances, selective silence. And that's what makes it effective. It plants doubt. You start asking yourself, did I do something wrong? Did I deserve this? But the Stoic response is clarity. You remind yourself, calmly and firmly, this is not about me. This is a reflection of their disorder. A person who is at peace with themselves does not need to exclude others. They can speak with grace, even to those they disagree with. So when someone refuses to speak to you, they reveal everything you need to know. Not about your worth, but about the chaos within them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not what others say or do that troubles you, but your judgment of their actions." In other words, their silence only hurts if you decide it does. When viewed through wisdom, it loses its power. It bounces off your calm like an arrow against stone, so the next time someone deliberately talks to everyone except you, don't shrink. Don't question your voice. Don't chase their attention. Observe them instead, with quiet understanding. Smile internally, because now you see the truth. Their silence is not peace. It's noise in disguise. Real hatred doesn't always yell or gossip. Sometimes it whispers through silence. But the Stoic does not chase noise. The Stoic masters stillness. And the greatest form of power is this: when they choose to ignore you and you genuinely don't care. 8. They smile while harming you. This is perhaps the most deceptive, and therefore the most dangerous sign of all. When someone smiles while harming you, you are no longer dealing with ordinary anger. You are facing a calm, calculated form of hatred. Anger wants to destroy you quickly. Hatred disguised as kindness wants to destroy you quietly. These are the people who appear friendly in public, who praise you in front of others, who act supportive and warm. But behind closed doors, they twist the knife. They sabotage your reputation. They manipulate your words. They subtly undermine your confidence, all while maintaining a flawless smile. The smile is their camouflage. They wear it to appear harmless, trustworthy, even caring. But every move they make is measured, intentional, and designed to weaken you. Imagine this scenario. You work with someone who always greets you warmly. They tell you you're doing great work, and their grin feels genuine. Then one day, you discover they've been spreading quiet rumors about you. Nothing obvious. Nothing you can easily confront. Just enough to plant doubt in other people's minds. And when you finally address it, they laugh lightly and say, "Oh, come on. You know I'd never do that." That's not misunderstanding. That's manipulation. And that is hatred. Here's the subtle genius of it. When someone smiles while harming you, you begin to second-guess yourself. You wonder, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they didn't mean it like that. Maybe they're just joking. And that hesitation is exactly what they want. Confusion is their weapon. Self-doubt is their victory. In Stoic philosophy, this behavior would be seen as a corruption of the soul. A person whose inner thoughts no longer align with their outer actions. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Hatred, disguised as kindness, works the same way. It is cowardice that refuses to show itself honestly. These smiling enemies are not brave enough to confront you directly. They don't have the courage for open conflict because that would expose their weakness. So instead, they choose manipulation. They harm with kindness because open hostility would reveal who they truly are. And that's what makes them twice as dangerous. The human brain is naturally disarmed by warmth. We trust friendliness. We lower our guard around smiles. That's why Stoicism teaches something deeper than listening to words. It teaches you to read energy, to observe behavior over time, because character always leaks through patterns. Someone who truly supports you wants to see you grow, even if your growth challenges their ego. But someone who hates you will always mix praise with poison. A compliment followed by doubt. A smile followed by a subtle jab. They'll say things like, "You're really improving. I didn't think you had it in you." Or, "I love your new project, but don't you think it's a bit ambitious?" Or, "You've changed a lot. Hopefully for the better." Each sentence sounds harmless, even polite. But beneath it lies a psychological needle, carefully designed to puncture your confidence without leaving visible wounds. Nothing you can easily call out. Nothing you can clearly confront. Just enough to make you question yourself. This is why Stoicism emphasizes emotional discipline, not only in how you act, but in how you perceive. Because when someone smiles while harming you, your instinct is to react, to expose them, to raise your voice, to prove you're right. But a Stoic doesn't need to do any of that. A Stoic sees the truth and remains unmoved. Once you recognize the pattern, once you see the venom beneath the smile, their power dissolves. You stop taking their words personally. You stop being surprised by their actions. You understand that every fake compliment, every sweet remark, every smile while they twist the knife is actually a confession of weakness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best way to avenge yourself is not to become like them." So when you encounter these smiling enemies, don't lower yourself to their level. Don't play their game. Don't let bitterness distort your peace. Instead, step back, observe, stay calm, stay kind but distant. Because here's the ultimate irony. Their smile is a mask they wear because they cannot handle your authenticity, your calmness, your quiet strength, your self-control. It reminds them of everything they lack. Their smile hides envy. Their politeness conceals fear. And when you remain grounded, refusing to mirror their deception, you expose their truth without ever saying a word. So remember this. Not every smile is friendly. Not every kind word is sincere. And not every ally stands on your side. But when you live by Stoic principles, self-control, awareness, and calm detachment, no false smile can fool you for long. Because hatred, when disguised as kindness, always betrays itself in the end. And when it finally does, your peace will become the loudest silence they will ever hear. 9. They try to turn others against you. There is something even more dangerous than being hated openly. It is being hated quietly. When someone truly despises you, they rarely confront you directly. They don't shout. They don't argue. They don't challenge you face to face. That would require courage. Instead, they choose a far more destructive path. They work behind the scenes, slowly trying to turn others against you. Hatred moves like smoke. It slips through cracks unnoticed, spreading silently until it fills the entire room. And those who carry it are often too afraid to face you directly, so they infect others instead. They whisper. They twist details. They reshape stories, not to reveal truth, but to distort it. Over time, even people close to you may begin to hesitate. They start questioning who you really are. And that is what makes this betrayal so painful. It doesn't attack your body. It attacks your reputation. It is psychological warfare. A person who hates you doesn't want to see you isolated because of what you did. They want to see you isolated because of who you are. They cannot stand that others respect you, trust you, or feel drawn to your presence. Because that respect reflects everything they feel they lack. So they launch a quiet campaign. It often begins with harmless-sounding phrases. Don't you think they've changed lately? I mean, I like them, but something feels off. I'm not trying to gossip. I just think you should be careful. These words are poison disguised as concern. They sound reasonable, even caring, but they are engineered to plant doubt, to make people hesitate before trusting you, to make them pause before defending you. At first, it's small. One conversation, one rumor, one seed of distrust planted in private. But hatred never stops once it starts. It feeds on momentum. The more people they influence, the more powerful they feel. And when others begin repeating it, adding to it, exaggerating it, the damage multiplies. What started as a whisper becomes a wildfire. The Stoics understood this long before. Gossip could spread instantly through screens. Marcus Aurelius warned, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But people driven by hatred don't live by truth. They live by projection. They need others to feel the same bitterness they carry inside. Imagine this. You've been working hard at your job. You show up early. You help your team. You stay disciplined. And eventually, you earn recognition, maybe even a promotion. Instead of congratulating you, someone starts saying you're just trying to impress the boss, or that you must have connections. Your success suddenly becomes suspicious. Your effort is reframed as manipulation. And slowly, your co-workers begin to keep their distance, unsure of what to believe. You did nothing wrong, but hatred rarely needs a reason. It only needs a target. This kind of social sabotage is designed to destroy your peace, to make you overthink, to make you doubt yourself, to make you wonder what people are saying when you leave the room. And that is exactly what they want. They want you defensive, paranoid, small. But this is where Stoicism becomes your armor. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. You cannot control the rumors. You cannot control what others believe, but you can control your reaction. The moment you start chasing every accusation, defending yourself to everyone, explaining yourself endlessly, you begin to lose your power. Truth does not need panic. Truth does not need noise. Truth needs patience. And when you remain steady, when you refuse to be pulled into chaos, when you keep living with integrity while others whisper, something powerful happens. The lies collapse under their own weight, and the people who mattered were watching your consistency all along. As we've seen before, silence and self-control are not weakness. They are quiet strategies that work over time. Even when the situation feels unfair, when you remain calm, collected, and consistent, lies eventually collapse under their own weight. False stories cannot stand forever. People begin to notice patterns. They start to realize that the same person spreading rumors always seems to have a new target. Drama follows them everywhere, like a shadow they can't escape. Slowly, almost unnoticed at first, their credibility begins to rot. Hatred may win a few short battles, but it always loses the war. Because lies require constant maintenance, while the truth stands effortlessly. Needing no defense, you might feel tempted to expose them, to gather evidence, to prove your innocence and make them look bad. That urge is human. But a Stoic response is not revenge. It is restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When they lie, you tell the truth. When they gossip, you remain silent. When they operate in the shadows, you walk openly in the light." That is how you win. Not by shouting, not by reacting emotionally, but by outlasting them. And here's the irony. The people who try to turn others against you eventually turn everyone against themselves. Once they are finished with you, they will need a new target. It becomes an endless cycle. They destroy relationships, erode trust, and slowly dismantle their own integrity. Hatred consumes them from the inside long before it ever reaches you. So when you notice someone quietly twisting your image, don't panic. Don't chase rumors. Don't explain yourself to everyone. Simply observe. Keep living with honesty, kindness, and composure. Over time, people will see who is real and who is rotten. Hatred thrives on reaction. It feeds on attention, but it dies in silence. That's why your calm becomes their greatest frustration. When they see you unbothered, still growing, still smiling, still respected, their entire effort collapses. The truth possesses something hatred never will: endurance. When others try to turn the world against you, remember this. They can manipulate words, but they cannot touch your essence. Stay rooted in integrity. Let your life speak louder than their lies. Eventually, the truth will do what hatred never can. It will endure. Hatred is not always loud. It doesn't always scream or arrive as open conflict. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sometimes it acts polite. Sometimes it hides behind people who pretend to care. But this quiet form of hatred is far more dangerous than anger. Anger ends when it's expressed. Hatred lingers. It plans. It watches your every move, waiting for the moment to strike where it hurts most. Your peace, your reputation, your sense of self. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed hatred is not a reflection of you, but of the person who carries it. Epictetus once said, "When someone does wrong, remember that they act according to what they believe is right." Hatred is the same. It is a symptom of confusion, envy, and unresolved pain disguised as superiority. People often hate what reminds them of their own unhealed wounds. Your calm unsettles the restless. Your confidence exposes the insecure. Your light offends those still lost in darkness. But here's the truth most people miss. Hatred cannot survive without your reaction. The moment you fight it, feed it, or try to make sense of it, you give it power. The Stoic path is not to match the darkness, but to outshine it through discipline, patience, and inner peace. This is the essence of Stoic strength. Emotional control in the face of cruelty. You don't need to correct every rumor, confront every liar, or expose every betrayal. Let time do its quiet work. The truth does not need your defense. It needs your patience. Your enemies will reveal themselves through their own words, their own behavior, and their own contradictions. And when that moment comes, your silence will be the loudest response. If you want to live a Stoic life, remember this: your calm is your fortress. Every hateful act loses its power the moment you refuse to react. Your peace is not vit. It is mastery. It is the wisdom of knowing that not every battle deserves your sword. Some battles are best won through stillness. And if you ever find yourself surrounded by hatred, stay kind, but stay sharp. Don't let bitterness turn you into what you despise. Protect your peace the way a warrior protects his armor. Because the moment hatred reshapes you, it wins. Marcus Aurelius reminded us again, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like the wrongdoer. So don't let hate rewrite your character. Keep walking your path. Keep speaking your truth. Keep your heart clean. That is how you rise above. Not by proving anyone wrong, but by refusing to become them. And before we end, if you ever feel overwhelmed by negativity or struggle to stay centered through it all, I've built a Patreon community where I personally guide people one-on-one through Stoic practices, text-based mentorship, and private teachings on emotional mastery and peace. It's a small circle for those who want to grow quietly and build inner strength that no hatred can touch. You can join through the link in the description or the pinned comment and begin your own path toward.com. Stoic resilience, because in a world full of noise, hate, and chaos, peace is rebellion, and mastering yourself is the greatest victory.